Welcome to the Nightbird Radio Podcast. I'm Timothy Saylor, and I'm going to be your host this evening as we sound out the subconscious, navigate the nocturnal, and explore the farthest reaches of our experience. Coming at you from the back of an 86 Dodge Ram van on the rolling foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in the Great Forest, deep in the heart of the Kali Yuga. This is radio for the hauntological turn. And welcome back, Nightbirds. I've got a great episode for you this evening. I was joined by artist, environmental educator, and spirit worker Steve Niner. Steve shared his story with me, and along the way we talked about initiation, ancestral medicine, working with the spirits of the land, fairy, saints, druids, and so much more. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. So without further ado, let's fly.
Can I swear?
You can swear all you want. Yeah.
Right, good.
I would be screwed if I couldn't swear. My last name is Saylor, and it shows. Steve Niner, welcome to Nightbird Radio.
Wow, it's great to be here. This is my first being a guest on a podcast. So this is
really?
Yeah. So
that's
this
surprising to me.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So I have mentioned you a couple times on here. Only last time did I give your name because I figured I'd invite you on. Because I talk a lot. I just talk a lot about the ancestral medicine process. That's been really cool. But before we get into some of that, did you have any? What were some of the experiences you had early in life that led you to this magical life? Has it always been something that you've been aware of, that you've felt around you, or was there a kind of a moment?
Yeah, but there's a sequence of moments, I think. My life was pretty good up until I was about 8. But it had started going wrong then. And I was at a kind of a private, which means my parents paid for it, school for kind of middle class boys in south of London. And I started getting into more and more trouble. And it culminated in me. I was having to do kind of punishment stuff, like go in on Saturdays and do punishment stuff. And I just got more and more miserable and more pissed off. And in the end, one of these Saturdays, I freaked at the teacher doing it. And I lost my rag at him. And the following Monday, I had to spend the whole day outside the headmaster's study. And at the end of the day, he beat me. And my parents, up at this point, until I came home covered in bruises, just didn't believe for what was going on. And when I came home with the bruises, they believed. So they then, the guy would have been done for child abuse now. Okay. But they took me away from that school and sent me to a boarding school. And that's when, and it was during this period, they kind of got a diagnosis that I was dyslexic. Okay. So once that was in place and I had that little kind of, a thing to kind of hang over my head or whatever, I kind of went through two other schools for kind of middle class problem children, because I became more and more entrenched as a rebel and fought the system and wouldn't be told and and then changed school, similar thing, I just fought. Or, the good things about both the boarding schools I was at, they were both out in the country, they were both out in the woods, and I loved being out in the woods. And I suppose the other thing that kind of played into this was I really, when I was about 13, 14, I was, because the schools were Church of England, I was going through the confirmation to be confirmed. And I went through it, and I loved the stories and thought this was it. And when I went through the ceremony, I realized it was utter bullshit, and that I had more experience of the holy, of creation out in the woods than I did. I've never been to church or taken communion ever since that point. I've been in churches, but I've never participated in a Christian ceremony since that point.
And thanks for sharing that. I relate to that a lot because I had problems in school too, and it turned out, they medicated me, so similar kind of thing going on where they just kind of don't. The system isn't really designed to like engender actual growth or bring you up in any way besides the way that they seem to want you to be, right?
Yeah.
That's my experience, at least. I hated school.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So let's talk about some of those experiences of the holy that you mentioned. What were some of those experiences? Is there anything that you want to share about, or is it just a general?
I suppose it was just knowing that it was magnificent, It was just, there was life there, and I was part of it, and I was free, and I got blown away by a sunset or whatever it was, or I was fishing, or I was out in a sailboat, or whatever. It was, I knew that was the real world, and the human world was just fucking bullshit. It was just, I wasn't part of that world.
Yeah, and I think there's healing there, right? I don't know. It's just kind of crazy when you come up in this system and don't experience any kind of real healing, and then you go out into nature and that's where you find the healing. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's where it is.
Yeah.
But it's mind-blowing at the same time to experience it.
And the next day, so at school, and the more I kind of, I got more and more sophisticated in my fighting. I mean, one of the interesting things was there was a film by a British filmmaker called Lindsay Anderson, and he made this film called If. And it was about a bunch of kids at a school exactly like mine who stole weapons from the armory because the schools all had a cadet force. And then at a specific point set up and started being shooters in the school. And I saw the film, I think after I'd left school, but it blew me away because that was my fantasy. And I'd literally started stealing ammunition from the armory. It was my fantasy. I would have been a child shooter.
Isn't it crazy to you that, okay, this just got my mind moving, because I think it's wild that people act so surprised that things like this are happening when the system is designed to make soldiers.
Yeah.
Like, we based our school system after the Prussian school system. That was the goal of it, was to create soldiers. Yeah. And then we wonder why these things happen. I
mean, I honestly, I would have been, if I was a kid in the US, I would have been a fucking shooter, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it was my plan. It was my fantasy. I had it all planned out. I knew where I was going to have the guns. I knew what I was doing. I would spend every day I was on punishment duty, kind of planning how I would do it and what I would do it. I would have been a shooter.
And so that's a crossroad, right?
Yeah.
So what brought you away from that?
Well, because I left school when I was about 16, which was kind of late 1966. And I went straight into art school, and hippiedom was calling. And, I was within a year, I was taking LSD and I was smoking hashish on a regular basis. And I just went, yeah, these are my people. This is what I want to do. I love getting high. So, it was the LSD that probably pulled me out of it. It was, we had really, really good LSD, and it was very strong and very pure. It was, it was coming straight in from kind of California, basically. It was,
back when it was real stuff.
It was real top quality. Yeah.
So I probably got a little bit of this, but this is a question that I like to ask everyone. So what were you afraid of as a child?
I just thinking, I suppose, the losing of my identity, me being crushed by the system.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I think there was I think I came into life kind of in a sense, with in a way an awareness that I'd signed up for this, and the acid kind of absolutely confirmed that.
Okay, yeah. So now is this where we're getting into your sort of magical origin story, as when you started doing spirit work? Is that around that time?
Yeah, I was just a hippie. I was just a young hippie doing young hippie things.
Yeah, doing hippie shit.
Yeah, but I was kind of, I was very kind of involved in student politics, hippie student politics. I was the local representative with all the UK kind of underground magazines. We put on film shows, we put on art exhibitions, we did kind of guerrilla art. I very much based what I was doing on Ken Kesey, the Merry Pranksters. It was in a sense, it was a lifestyle rather than me being specifically, I'm doing magic or doing that. That came a bit later. But yeah.
Yeah, I think art is kind of like that one of those gateways too. And I mean, obviously LSD helps, but like getting involved with art too. For me, that was a big one, right? When I started writing, it was like, I'm going to this world, and this is a place that I can not only go, but sort of bring things back from. And I don't know that I knew it at the time, but I think that was a beginning for me. So if we want to continue tracing that line, you mentioned that it was just sort of a lifestyle and you didn't see it as you were doing magic. When did you start to see that?
I think I was, well, in a sense, I was, because I was stoned all the time, and it was about, there was a real vibe about we're going to change the world, and there was a huge optimism at that point, there was. And I suppose the next really pivotal point was, we had a little kind of performance group like the Pranksters, and we go around doing gigs and stuff like that. And, you know, you hang out with different people and, you know, all sorts of interesting things. And then I think I was kind of, I got into the supply side of drugs in London. And I think this was another major point, was kind of being busted by London Drug Squad, and
that'll do it.
Who had, somebody had grasped us that we had large amounts of clear light acid, thousands of tabs we had, and they came in, they drove me door. I was taken in the cells. I was beaten up in the cells, and it scared the shit out of me. And it was kind of, was that? Oh no, yeah, no. Actually, previous to this experience, there had been the first kind of Glastonbury free festival, rock festival. And I was tripping, as I always was, and this child guru, guy called Guru Maraji, appeared on stage, and I felt a drawn to him, a magnetism to it. And then I forgot about it. I got into the dealing, got busted, and I was so shaken up by being the bust and being beaten up and stuff like that. But I went and did the initiation into the Indian pop guru stuff, okay? And I kept up the practice in that. I fought it. I went in and out of it for a bit because they wanted everybody to cut their hair, and I thought, fuck, I'm not going to cut my hair. That's kind of not what I'm going to do. And I fought it, but I kind of kept in and out of it on my own way. And then I suppose I spent, this is about 71, 72, something like this, through then. And then I was living in Brighton, which is a seaside town south of London. And I had a house there, and it was my house, and I ended up kind of like the only one working in it. Everybody else was dotting around while I was working and keeping it all together. And in the end, I left that and went and lived in the squats up in London. I walked out of my house, and I kind of, in a sense, the guru thing actually saved my life, probably. I was already, doing lots of cocaine and, I was on slippery slope time,
Yeah. I'm very familiar with those slopes. I had a similar experience, and I was arrested for selling drugs. And what I tell people sometimes is that when I look back, I can see like the hand of something like plucking me up, because especially nowadays, it is deadly.
Yeah, it was exactly the same. My dealing partner, who I got busted with, he didn't get beaten up. I pulled out. I stopped dealing. I did a little bit of weed, but what I mean. I stopped the big stuff, but it was. He didn't get beaten up. He ended up doing prison time. I never did prison time. I just got a fine. He ended up doing prison time, and he ended up committing suicide. And
that happens a lot too.
I know that the cop who beat me up actually did me a favor, because he scared the shit out of me. I'm grateful to him.
Yeah, that gratitude is something that's really difficult to explain to someone, but it's. Yeah, I have the same feeling. I went away for about 3 months. I spent in jail, really because I was stupid, and ran away on warrants. I was smoking a cigarette and like too close to a train station. And this cop stopped me to give me a warning. And that was it. Extradited to where I had the charges. And it would be so easy to sit there and say, man, fuck that cop, fuck that situation. In my journey, it's just an immense source of gratitude. Like you said, it's just nothing but gratitude because I'm here now.
Right.
And so thanks for sharing that. I relate to that a lot.
Yeah. And it was this time in Brighton when I started getting into the magic. It was then I started, in a sense, wanting to try to find out what I had been experiencing and trying to make sense of it. And I'd had some, in a sense, trying to process what I'd experienced on the psychedelics. Kind of where was it? So I kind of came, started getting, the Book of Thoth and being into Crowley and Dean Fortune. And I started getting more and more into it. But then having gone back to London, I went back to college. I did a kind of postgraduate kind of vocational thing, and I started straightening myself up. And so I then just cut everything back. And from about 1970, about 74, 75, something like that, 76 punk time, I just did meditation, and I used the I Ching, and I was starting to hear about permaculture and stuff, and started studying all that. And I did that until 2000. That's all I did. I was working. By that time, my son was, I kind of got into kind of family stuff, and it wasn't until but that gap from the late 70s to 2000, I was just doing this really, really simple stuff. I was probably drinking too much, and but I was keeping, really, in a sense, it was like I was a sleeper. The last time I took acid was I was given a vision that there was like a steel. It was like being in the hold of a ship with great big steel plates above my head, and I was kind of told that I wasn't going to be able to get high again that way. And so it was just doing the meditation and the I Ching. And that was for 30 years.
So what changed around the turn of the millennium?
My partner at the time, we had a young baby. She was, she was 2001, just before, about a week before 9/11. Okay. My partner was a filmmaker, and she got headhunted for a job to make a film, to series produce some TV stuff for Canadian TV. And we rented out a house in London and went and lived in Montreal. And it was within about a week or so of being in Montreal, suddenly the shutters went up. And I suddenly, there was a really good bookstore down the road, and I started finding stuff about shamanism and a whole bunch of stuff that had been, I'd been making my art. My art was all very kind of shamanic, kind of like, but I didn't really know about it. And it was like, oh fuck, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm into.
Yeah.
And it was like the shutters opened, and suddenly things opened up for me. And there was some really profound stuff in the couple of years spent in Canada. I started studying because I'd been to the States quite a few times, 3-4 times, in that 30-year gap. But it was never for very long. I suppose about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, a couple of months was the longest stretch in Florida. But it was, it was. I realised I knew nothing about the North American wilderness or wilderness, and if I was going to be, and we thought at the time we were going to live there, and I kind of came across this thing about a guy called John Young, who started the Wilderness Awareness School in Seattle. He was trained by Tom Brown Jr., who did the tracker and all that kind of wilderness stuff. And the thing that kind of prompted me into this is I was still kind of coming from my career for that 30 years was in the arts. I kind of, had a good career painting theatre scenery in London. So I was really involved in the arts. I earned my living by making art. And, there was a book by, I think she's Canadian, called Susie Gablick, an art critic. And she wrote this book called Conversations at the End of Time. I think about 99, somewhere like that, it was published. And it was great. And she was she was talking to different artists about what was the function of art with kind of environmental meltdown. Is art just like moving the chairs of the Titanic, or does it actually have anything to add? And there was a couple from LA, and they'd gone off and trained with Tom Brown, who does, it's all bushcraft stuff, survival bushcraft stuff. And he's really good. And John Young was his first student, and he started the Wilderness Awareness, which was basically native earth-based spirituality with kind of field biology. So you're doing awareness stuff out in the bush, but you're also using your guidebooks, and you're learning the species. And it worked really, really quickly, and it really opened me up. It was really good. Starhawk did a really, really good book on this called The Earth Path. With the same, that book was really important because it was the first, I had all my different compartments, like it was my permaculture hat, my spiritual hat, my activist hat, my self-development hat, all these different
They all
things.
kind of converged there.
Yeah. And she pulled it all together in that one book. And that was really good. And what happened was I got really opened up again. We had a cabin down near the Vermont woods, just across the border in Quebec. And I'd spend, I was doing house dad. So I would go down there with baby daughter and then head off into the woods whenever I could. And I was then told by the spirits of the land there to go back to the UK. I was told that North America's karma wasn't mine, but the UK's karma was.
Oh wow! That's really cool. So you're in Wales now?
Yeah.
And what brought you there?
Well, for a long time I've wanted to do this kind of permaculture project. Basically, I wanted to I really love the whole idea of forest gardens and stuff like that. And I've kept trying to do this. I've had this vision, dream, mission that I've had for years, and it kept coming, and I would kept trying to get bits of land, or would be offered bits of land, and it would fuck up, and it was again and again and again I did it. And I think I put in a question to Gordon about it when something collapsed. Probably it was probably early, 2019, kind of COVID time and during lockdown. And but just before that all happened, I was going to be starting this whole thing down in Glastonbury. And I'd got a place to live down there. And it was all sorted, and it died. And I was moaning to Gordon, probably in a Q&A or whatever it was, just saying, why does it fucking not work? Why does it not work? And a fellow rune super we'd met at a book launch up in London, I think the launch of one of the Scarlet Imprint books, and we'd got talking about permaculture, and he just kind of messaged me, it was about New Year 21. Yes, so it's only just a year. And he said, I've got some land. Do you want to come up? And that's why. And I kind of broke lockdowns and kind of came up here, looked at it, and then moved up here just over a year ago.
So it just opened up just like that.
Yeah, it was like waiting for it. And
so what do you think about all those? And this is a question that I just want to know personally, because I just want to know what you think about it. What do you think about those failures on the way to it? What did those teach you, or what was what is the purpose of it, to you in your mind?
It was, I think about it now. I think, thank fucking God that none of the others worked.
Okay, yeah. So this was the one for you.
Yeah, and it's like the spirits, my team, my spirits, literally knew it was going to happen, and it was about me needing to get the skill sets in place. And have done the groundwork, done the experience. I mean, I didn't have anywhere, and I was growing trees in pots. I had all the tools. Anytime I had spare money, I would buy tools or all the kit. So when this happened, I kind of got bang, and I could hit the ground. Basically,
nice. Yeah,
with everything in place, and I was doing it without knowing what was going to happen.
Yeah. I love that. That's really good to hear, because I've had some.
Oh yeah, come on.
No, you go ahead.
I think it's to go back to rewind just slightly. I think. Well, my experience is my spirits had a plan for me, and I think it's my spirit, but it's the spirit team. But I think it's like the higher self, the holy guardian angel. I think it's that kind of soul contract thing that we've got a job to do. And and in a way, you go, I'd go, fuck, why isn't this working? And I'll throw all the magic at it, everything, fucking sigils, everything, why is it fucking not working? Why is it not working? A bang,
Yeah.
And it's about patience. It's trusting that one's higher self actually knows what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, that's good to hear for me, because I just had a recent one where it was like I did all the magic for it, and I thought it was just like exactly what I was supposed to be doing. It was like a chance rekindling of this friendship. And it just opened up this opportunity. I went out west to Arizona, and it just failed. It didn't work, And so I just like, well, what the fuck, This was supposed to be the thing. but was it like, like obviously not, right? That was my estimation.
Yeah.
And I, have since it's come into context for me, right? Like, no, I mean, I can see again where I was really being held the whole time. And it's just funny because I've tried to leave Georgia so much, but I'm always brought back. And at this point, I'm happy. I'm like, oh, I really fucking love this place. Like,
Yeah.
I love the woods. I love the rivers. Like, I had been doing a lot of working with the land and the spirits of the land before I left as a way of, kind of saying goodbye. But then I go out and it's like, no, you're not done here yet. you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I think my experience is that in a way we're only given a certain amount of information, and that probably if we knew it wasn't the real thing, we wouldn't really get the lessons from it. We would think, oh, well, this isn't it, but it might be fun. But actually, we have to, because of where we're at and I think a lot of being here is about being educated. We're being taught something. And actually, I think we have to just go with the lessons. And in a way, I mean, I don't regret any of it now, because it's the same with relationships. You can think, why is this? But you fall in love with somebody and it's wonderful, and then it all goes fucking wrong, and you think, why have I done it? But actually, then there's gold in there. There's lessons. There is, it's how we learn. I think we learn through actually things not working. I think that's what part of our path, and in a way, it's kind of it's holding on and trusting that actually, one's higher self actually knows what the fuck's going on, and just trust them. And you just, I always think it's a bit like that scene in one of the Indiana Jones films, like when he's trying to cross the abyss.
Yeah, totally.
And the stones aren't there, so he has to throw some dirt, right? And the stone behind him immediately disappears. That to me has been my life path, like that.
Yeah, that's a good image.
Yeah. I think it's all about. Yeah, I mean, I really do think that we especially, being a magician and actually doing that work and actually being at home in that work and being, we have a job to do. And in a way, I think it's that we carry it for others who aren't, but that has always been the role of a shaman. In a way, yeah. In a way, I think I sometimes play with the idea it's like being a cultural shaman, but in fact, it's how we are like in a way, we're changing the culture by changing ourselves.
Yeah, I feel that way about my recovery journey too. Like, and I feel it's very shamanic because I go through this experience and I reach this deep, deep, dark place, this underworld journey of addiction. But now that I'm out of it and that I have done it, I am now able to share that experience and give a little hope to someone that's in it. You know what I mean? Because it's easy to forget what it was like to be there.
Yeah.
But there are
Yeah.
people that are there.
Yeah.
They're there right now.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to do that if I hadn't gone there. Like you have to go to the cave, right?
Yeah. Which is why, exactly why kind of like mainstream medicine doesn't help, because the people haven't been there. So you can't,
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
We, in a sense, one needs to know the medicine. One needs to have experienced it, and I think we actually, in a sense, I think we because we're all, we're. I think this is where the ancestors come in a sense, but because we are the representative of the of humans, and a specific kind of tribal or a specific point of type, a certain type of human. Okay, we've come from our different places, wherever we come, and we are the representatives of that, embodied of those lineages. And actually, by us kind of transforming ourselves, and it's alchemical. We're literally transforming the collective unconscious. I've got a theory that there's been so many people getting out their heads one way or another since the 60s, or if not beforehand, with the Beats and people like that. But it's been really consistent for a long time. We've actually shifted stuff. We have shifted for general consciousness. Maybe that's why it's so fucking weird at the moment. But,
Yeah. And I think too that like weird will rise up kind of in the same way I see prayer rising up as a response to suffering. Like there will always be kind of a not opposing, that's not the word I'm looking for, but a complementary force almost. Like if there's suffering, then prayer will rise up to meet it, right?
Yeah. Nice.
I think it's the same with like, yeah, as bad weird as things might get, like there's gonna be some good weird too. Like good and bad are so like those aren't even like, you know what I mean? Like maybe oppression and freedom would be a better dichotomy. Not that I'm super into those either. But you mentioned ancestors, and so that's a great segue. And so where did the ancestor medicine, where did that work? Or you know what? Let me backtrack real quick. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, the ancestral medicine process, a little bit?
Yeah, my journey into it, or okay,
maybe maybe a little bit of, if you can interweave them.
I'll tell you what there is, which you can then link to in the show. I did a little film, YouTube on an introduction to ancestral medicine.
Oh, great! Yeah, I'll link that for sure.
So you can link that, and then you've got all those stories in a way. But I think for me, the ancestor thing is so much. It's part of that deal of who. Of what my higher self is, or the greater part of me, which I'm just the embodied representative of, wants to happen. And it clicked a whole bunch of stuff into place. It clicked. I really, really like the ritual container that works with ancestral medicine. I use it for everything now. It's so clean. It's like it's basically doing a magic circle in your imagination.
It's been great for me too.
Spinning it around you. Yeah.
Just from one session that we had, which is great. But then I've had kind of continued to work off of that in my practice. But it's helped with my journeying.
Yeah.
Just the process that we went through, or that I went through with you in that session, has given me, I don't know, it almost like just increased my confidence with journeying to where I'm not questioning it really. I'm just letting it go, right?
Yeah.
And I'm letting the spirit lead.
Yeah,
spirits.
That's really good. That's great. Yeah, I'm really pleased. That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think I had a talk with Daniel. I emailed him because I wanted, because Daniel's, he was really into chaos magic early on, and he's done everything. He's done the psychedelics. He's done all that, and I asked him about about what, how did it come to him that the kind of sophistication and simplicity of the system. And he said, I said, was it because, he practices Ifa, Yoruba stuff. That's his personal part, practice. And I said, was it that? And he sent me an audio kind of message about it. And he said it was already forming before he got involved with IFA, whatever it is. But he said actually what it is, it was necessity. It was the spirits, the ancestors, the old ones saw it that we needed help.
Yeah, like in this moment.
Yeah. And they stepped forward and they gave him this process. And he said, yeah, he's tweaked it a bit, but basically they gave it to him. And that's what he, shares.
That's really cool to hear. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I'm glad they gave him the process, because it really does, to me, the more I look at it, the more it appears as if we live in ruins. We more so than being in a society of progress or in a place of in a place of advancement or something. It's like the world is kind of post-apocalyptic already.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that sense, because we don't have on a wider scale, and that I'm not even saying that to sound dire or not. It is dire, but to be not hopeful either, right? But just to show the place that we've gotten to where we're that disconnected. It's really mind-blowing.
Yeah. And I think it's in a way it's needing to push more and more extreme, because that makes it so much easier for people to wake up,
Yeah.
And because if I know from my own life, in a way we touched it early on, basically I've learned most where because I fucked up, and we don't look, we're perverse humans. We don't learn from the good times,
Yeah, hardly remember them.
yeah, I read it. It's fucking weird, that.
It really is. It's a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
I spend all this time trying to get them, and then when they're there, they pass.
Yeah,
sand,
right.
Like sand through your fingers, right?
Yeah.
I think obviously it's why we came here. And I think that I can see myself as a spirit with all this bluster being like, yeah, I'm going to go there and I'm going to have, no connection to my ancestors for generations to live in this society. Yeah, I'm going to do it. It's going to be great. Yeah, watch me. Hold my beer, And I'm here and I'm like, oh shit, this is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's wild. I got a buddy that's been on this podcast a couple of times, Michael Simon. He posed this question to me, maybe yesterday or the day before, because we were talking about just the current discourse. And he said, well, what is a man even? What is a man? And he meant it in the context of, like a man. Like, what is a man? And my only answer that I could give him, and it's kind of based on doing this work, is that we don't have any, because that lineage has been broken. That used to be something that you were initiated into, and we don't have that system of initiation.
I think initiation does happen, but I think that, in a sense, gang culture has its initiations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like addiction for me was initiation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what we haven't got is like, and I think that is the tragedy, and it's back to the psychedelics, is that that because of them being illegal, which are still totally here. I mean, weed is illegal here.
Yeah, still. Here too.
Yeah. So it's the people with the elders. In a way, it's the lack of elders. We don't have elders because most old people aren't fucking elders. Most of them are fucking adolescents.
I was going to say, I feel like we're all children.
Yeah. I mean, we're back to John Young and the Wilderness Awareness School. One of the things he taught said that actually what we are, and I really took this on board, is what we are is elders in training. We literally are training to be elders for young people.
Right. And in that sense, training to be ancestors too, right?
Yeah, because you go from elder to ancestor. Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought of it like that. That's really good. Yeah, but I mean that is it. But actually, because most people go on about, oh, you've got to respect the elderly and stuff. Yeah, you respect everybody, but they've got to be fucking. They could, they got to be
right.
Interesting and clever and actually know a fucking thing or two.
Yeah. Yeah, there's different kinds of respect, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's if you read Maladomi Some, who died recently. He was kind of a West African shaman, and he wrote a lot about initiation, and that's what we miss. I mean, you've got things like the Lost Borders people who do all the Vision Quest stuff, because that's all about initiation. It's coming, and I meant in a sense that the people, like all going to the jungle to get the initiative to do stuff and working with the wise, but we haven't. Western culture has broken. We don't have the wise ones. We don't have the elders.
And I think that breaking will also be the catalyst for it, right? Because we're going to need it.
Yeah,
more than ever, right?
Yeah, but it takes time to build, because you can't short circuit wisdom.
Right.
That's why the education system's fucked.
Yeah, right. And these things take generations, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah, I wanted to hear a little bit about your experience with whales. It sounds like to me, maybe it was a situation where you did. Is that even a place that you saw yourself? And since you've been there, what's been your experience of growing in relation to that place? Because I don't know much about Wales. I have like a very small amount of ancestry from there, though. So I'm just curious about it.
Okay, so Wales is it's kind of the western fringes. So it was It was the last stronghold of the Druids, right here where I live now.
Oh, cool.
So it was the place of resistance to the Roman Empire.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
That's
so
good imagery.
so it was, and there are woods round here, basically on the land I work with, on the edges of those lands, where the people literally melted into woods, and up until 1500s, people couldn't. Yeah, when they were doing Doomsday Book, which was 1000s, something like that, that they would send surveys off to try to, for the Normans, to try to find out what was going on, and they would all disappear because there were people in the woods, and in the mountains and stuff like that. And it's the magic, the land spirits, the kind of ancestral linkage, which is pretty much the same thing. The land spirits is very close to the surface here, so it's it's amazed me how connected I've got into it. And there's a group of us starting doing a monthly Zoom thing with Welsh saints or Celtic saints, where we're going, because there's so many holy wells and little old churches and saints that do really weird shit. You've got things like saints whose wife was a saint and their kids were saints, and things like this, and you've got hereditary saints and saints who are basically druids, and saints that have weird kind of relationships with birds and animals, and it's weird. And so we're doing this monthly Zoom meeting. We've done 2 so far, where we're basically asking them for their job description. So we're going to a saint who's got loads of stories and legends and plays. So, and we don't know what candles they like or what do they want as offerings. We don't know how to work them because that's not there. So we're all as a group journeying to them and
to recover that almost, or
we're doing a recovery with them. Yeah,
that's really cool. And talk about, man, I got goosebumps when you were talking, because it's another thread kind of that you had mentioned before of all this convergence of all these different things. So this is a convergence of ancestors, spirits of the land, saints, kind of all coming together in this point and converging there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I see it, for me, I see it as fairy. So that's the name, for me, works as what the other world is. And it's just full of weird beings. And they are, the experiences I've had since, it's like some of these saints, these spirits are really right with us on this project. And I mean, right early on with the project, we had, there were what kind of had found on journeying into the land and what was happening. And I think this is generally happens, is that, it confirms something I'd found out in Canada, that kind of humans channel land spirits. So what happened to me when I was in Canada doing it, where we had the cabin, I'd cut the first strand of the barbed wire fences so it could snowshoe to get down into the woods. And come spring and the snow's melted, I was going to restring the barbed wire before the farmer put the cattle out, and build stiles, wooden steps to get over the fences so to get to the woods. And I went down there with tools, and I'd spent a lot of time in these woods and was at home with them and was known and had, some really good experiences there. And I went there this time with tools and wood and all sorts of shit. And the vibe was really, really negative. It was like fucking white man with tools, you know, and and it was,
like some ants.
yeah, and I literally had to go, and I thought, whoa, this is really different, you know, this isn't what I've experienced here before. And so I explained what I was about to do, and the vibe immediately lifted.
Yeah,
And
I've
I could get
experienced
on
that
doing my
too.
work. Yeah.
Just through communication and just through an awareness that you're with a living being.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And what it showed me was why that, you know, is why things like big construction sites and stuff like that, and logging and all that type of stuff, why they're so violent. It's because all that basically the humans are channeling the pain of the nature spirits and the ancestors. Because in early on, the ancestors merge with you know, I've done sessions with people where, you know, they come and go to one of their early ones and they're a rock, you know, or a tree or a swamp.
Yeah.
Or, you know what it is? It's like there's a merging with, and we all merge in fairy. We all go there. And early on in the work with this piece of land, we were really being blocked by some other living humans who work another part of the land. It's part of a consortium of different people that use different bits. And I kind of sussed out, journeying and kind of inquiring, that basically this particular person, well, three people, were basically channeling the a kind of small c conservative vibe of nature. The nature spirits had seen enough fucking grandiose schemes and were using these humans to try to they were channeling, not knowing they were channeling, subconscious channeling, to block things happening. And what I did was did the process of the ancestral medicine process of, I went to the ancestors of the land, and I went to the ones who lived in right relationship, who lived on that land, and asked them to put the land, the whole, all the spirits, the ancestors, into the cocoon. And within a day, the vibe shifted.
That's great. I love hearing that. I love hearing about stuff. That's really cool. That kind of blew my mind open a little bit. That's gonna be one that I sit with, because that makes a lot of things make sense to me, especially with a lot of the things that go on here, you know. How much weirdness occurs around the mound sites here.
Yeah.
You know, and frankly, violence, right?
Yeah.
That's gonna definitely one to sit with.
We're way more sensitive than we think we are. We've been conned into thinking we're you know, these self-contained little individual units that isn't affected by anything. We're not. You know, that happens. If we, you know it in, you know, the bad vibes around bars or whatever. You know.
Totally. And you can feel that shift.
Yeah.
I remember one of the most frightening moments of my life was outside of a concert, and there was a huge crowd. No, not a, like, people weren't lined up or anything. It was just a huge, massive crowd, people trying to get in the gate, and it had started raining, and everyone's tickets that were printed off from, you know, like an inkjet printer or wherever they did it, had basically melted.
Oh God.
And there was like a huge press to get in, and you could feel it in the air, just this vibe shifting towards like what really is a stampede, right? I mean, people die in these situations. Luckily, nothing happened like that, but you could feel it as in like an electricity or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just that's one of the scariest things to me.
I mean, it really. I used to, when my kids were little, we were into football, and we would go to soccer. Yeah, so we'd go to big soccer games sometimes, and I used to just, because I wasn't really that interested, so I would kind of sit and basically meditate and feel the kind of the energy moving within a stadium,
Mm-hmm. I used to do that in jail.
Yeah.
And that's because I don't, obviously like a terrible place, but I've never been in a place that had more charge. Obviously, right? Because I've spoken about this on this podcast before, because there's a lot of bad things going on, but there's so much prayer happening in there. And when I would do magic in there, it would be like an immediate response.
Wow.
The stuff would just happen. Really fascinating. And it's like, I don't know. It was because before that, I had been like you had talking about kind of in your story, I was high all the time. So like I was probably experiencing this stuff all the time and just kind of was numbed to it. But this was the first time I had gotten a good chunk of sober thinking. I had gone times where I just drank, but even then I drank a lot when I just drank. So that experience was almost like I've described it as a monastic.
Yeah.
And so I treated it like that. Because it's also one of those things it's a pure potentiality. It can be whatever you want it to be. It can be a hell, or it can be a place of becoming.
Yeah. That's wise. That's good stuff. Yeah.
The fairy thing is a thread that I'd like to pull on more too, because I did the Rune Soup course, and there's just so much there that when we did the Fairy Queen journey, and for any listeners that haven't done this, runesoup.com, sign up. The courses are available. They're awesome. And so I'm not going to go into detail about what this was, because that's for you to find out. But in the court of the Fairy Queen, I saw an ancestor. And this guy was like, as I was leaving, he said, "I'll find you." And I'm like, "Okay, well, are you going to find me?" And, impatient, of course, impertinent. It's just part of who I am. I'm like, "Where are you, man?" So some time passed. And now when I did that session with you, we got to 3 guides for 3 of my lines. And there's 4 for those who are unaware of the process. You have 4 lines of blood. And the one that we didn't get to later on, the other 3 kind of brought him forward.
Yeah.
And it was that guy.
Yeah. Nice one. Yeah.
Just crazy. And you can't make it up. Like, I couldn't write that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah. You can find me on just email steveniner@gmail.com. Yeah, that's just the best way to contact me is that. I'm on Twitter on and off. Yeah, I have a look at it most days. I used to post a lot. My Twitter handle is Heresy and Sedition. My name on Twitter is Wildwood Steve. I kind of rant occasionally on it. I used to rant a lot, but I don't do it so much. But yeah, that's kind of where you can find me, and I'll give you we can put in the link for the Saint Bothering Zooms. That if you want to take part in the Saint Bothering, they happen kind of early each month on a Monday evening. on kind of 8 p.m. UK time. I'll give you the links for that.
Yeah,
And
I'll post those up in the notes.
Anybody, there's people already from the States already taking part in that. So
Very cool.
it's fun because we're just making it up as we go along. We don't really, we're starting to get it. We started with St. John the Baptist because it was a June one, and it was right by his time and day. And then this last Monday we did a Welsh saint called St. Bueno, who kind of specialises in sewing heads back on and returning people's heads. And it was great.
Nice.
Kind of, it went from John the Baptist, who lost his head, to Bueno, whose head.
I was going to say that's got some cool headless rites.
Yeah. So, and we're just playing it around, and it's a good session. So people are welcome to join us on that. So I'll put you the link.
Yeah.
Or if actually, yes, email me that you'd like to take part, and then I'll send you the Zoom links.
And also, send me whatever links you want me to post, and I'll put them up too.
Yeah.
I do usually promote on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah. I put this video up on YouTube for all 5 of my YouTube followers. I'd like to thank my 5 YouTube followers, by the way. You guys are great. I really appreciate y'all.
It's great.
Steve, thank you so much for coming on. I've had a great time talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great. I loved it. All right. Speak soon.
And there you have it. I know this was a great conversation because I thought of so many more questions I would have liked to have asked Steve before I ended the interview. How do you talk to a guy who spends that much time in the woods without asking him if he's seen a Bigfoot? Well, there's always next time. Do you experience weird shit? Have you had experiences that don't lie within the confines of consensus reality with its bogus and bland narratives? More importantly, do other people make you feel a little crazy when you talk about it? If you fist pumped or even just said yes to any of these questions, drop me a line at timjsailor@gmail.com. timjsailor@gmail.com. I'd love to have you on and hear your story on the show. Remember, you are never alone. I believe you.